SARS Hero Dies, the doctor who exposed the lies of the Chinese regime. China fines Deloitte nearly $31 million in an effort to contain American influence. China prevents UN webcast of UN rights meeting on North Korea. Hollywood grilled as actor tied to Beijing presents at Oscars despite opposition. TikTok will be banned if its Chinese owners don't sell their stakes. The secrecy and lack of reliable information by the Chinese Communist regime about the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic and its origins has had terrible consequences in the world and caused millions of deaths that perhaps, for the most part, could have been avoided. This behavior, typical of a totalitarian government, has already had a precedent during the 2003 severe acute respiratory syndrome epidemic known as SARS. Jiang Yanggong, a doctor working at the Beijing Military General Hospital when SARS hit China, denounced that in Beijing's military hospitals, cases of people affected by the epidemic were being hidden by order of the regime. Hundreds of patients were being secretly treated for this new disease. He also claimed that the number of infected people was many times higher than announced by the government. This audacious denunciation, initially denied by the authorities but admitted days later, had worldwide repercussions and earned the doctor the title of SARS Hero. Thanks to his courage, the Chinese regime was forced to recognize the seriousness of the situation, which made it possible to activate more disease control measures and avoid even higher numbers of people affected by the virus. The CCP, after being exposed, decided to clean up its image by dismissing the Chinese Minister of Health and the mayor of Beijing. Jiang Yanggong's name resounded again a year later after he sent a letter to party authorities urging them to acknowledge the mistake of the 1989 Tiananmen massacre, in which thousands of pro-democracy students were killed by People's Liberation Army soldiers. After the letter, the doctor was detained and subjected to ideological re-education for 7 weeks. His wife, Hua Zhangwei, a former researcher at the Academy of Military Science, was also detained on her way to the U.S. Embassy to apply for a visa, but was released 2 weeks later. In 2004, Jiang received the Philippines' Ramon Magsaysay Public Service Award, where he was praised for breaking China's habit of silence and bringing the truth about SARS to light. He won the Heinz R. Pagels Scientist Human Rights Award from the New York Academy of Sciences 3 years later. He was not allowed to travel to receive the awards. A few days ago, Hong Kong radio television reported that Jiang Yanggong, the SARS hero, died at 91 after suffering from pneumonia. Although the official press ignored his death, Chinese citizens paid tribute to him from social networks. Jiang's case is reminiscent of the one that occurred in 2019 when Dr. Li Wenliang tried to alert his colleagues about the appearance of SARS-like pneumonia, which later became known as COVID-19. Wuhan police reprimanded Li for fomenting rumors, forcing him to sign a letter of regret. Soon after, the doctor died of the virus, unleashing a wave of outrage among Chinese citizens against the regime's censorship and becoming yet another example of how far a government that uses systematic deception as a control tool can go. China's finance ministry has fined British auditing firm Deloitte 211.9 million yuan, nearly $30.8 million. According to the ministry's announcement on March 17th, Deloitte was fined for failing to fulfill China Huarong Asset Management Company Limited's asset quality assessment obligations. In addition, Beijing suspended Deloitte operations in Beijing for 3 months. People familiar with the matter told Bloomberg last month that Chinese authorities urged state-owned firms to stop using the 4 largest international accounting firms in January. The source also said that the suspension and fines come as China seeks to curb the influence of global auditing firms with links to the United States. China wants to ensure national data security and strengthen the local accounting industry. This is an unprecedented penalty for errors in the audit work of bad debt management company China Huarong Asset Management Company. According to Bloomberg, it is more than 25 times the total fines the department imposed on accounting firms during inspections last year. Deloitte's clients in China include state-owned giants such as Industrial and Commercial Bank of China Limited and China United Network Communications Limited. The Financial Times reported China Huarong is one of China's largest bad debt management companies. The company received a state-backed bailout in 2021 after delaying posting a record loss of 103 billion yuan, almost $15 billion. According to Finance Ministry data, Deloitte and the other 3 leading global auditing firms earned 20.6 billion yuan, nearly $3 billion, from all Chinese clients in 2021. Deloitte's revenue in China amounted to 4.2 billion yuan, over $600 million.
China has obstructed an attempt to stream online from the United Nations Security Council in New York, a UN discussion on human rights abuses in North Korea. The US needed a consensus from 15 council members to broadcast the March 17th meeting online. But as diplomats told Reuters, China opposed the plan, complaining in an email to council colleagues that it won't bring any benefit. The letter reads, "We have been against the holding of this meeting from the very beginning. Therefore, we have to object to the webcasting of this meeting by UN Web TV. China has a history of siding with North Korea in rejecting allegations about its human rights practices. For example, during a Human Rights Council session in 2014, Beijing referred to a groundbreaking report on the country's record as being divorced from reality." A diplomat who preferred to stay anonymous chided, "Why is China so afraid of discussing human rights publicly?" Diplomats also noted that it's uncommon for such a broadcast to be blocked. According to the Council on Foreign Relations, or CFR, China has been North Korea's primary trading associate and is believed to have the most influence over the regime of Kim Jong-un. Besides human rights issues, Beijing has also opposed sanctions against North Korea over its ballistic missile and nuclear pursuits. The CFR suggested that Beijing wanted to prevent the collapse of the regime and a flood of refugees across their 870-mile common boundary. North Korea, as well, enjoys a strategic geological position with China. As the South China Morning Post reported on March 15th, a team of Chinese scientists has found that if the US missile defense network were to fail, a North Korean missile could reach Central America in approximately 33 minutes. Hollywood is under fire for giving action star Donnie Yen a go-ahead at the Oscars, despite his support of the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP. In an op-ed, Bobby Miller from the National Review wrote, "Hollywood loves to portray itself as the voice of the voiceless, highlighting the struggles of marginalized people everywhere." He added, "But when giving a voice to the voiceless would entail acting against a one-party autocracy actively committing genocide, many of the most vocal stars balk." This January, the martial arts actor was appointed as a new member of the CPPCC, China's top political advisory committee. He sparked a backlash in February after an interview with GQ, in which he called the 2019 pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong a riot. Before the ceremony, a petition calling for his removal from the event garnered over 100,000 signatures within just 7 days. In addition, according to RFA, activists and Chinese dissidents staged a protest outside the Dolby Theater in Los Angeles on March 12th to oppose his appearance. About 200 people turned up for the demonstration. A banner read, "Say no to CCP puppet, say no to Donnie Yen." Reportedly, security was also tightened for the Academy Awards this year. Wang Dan, who led the protests outside the venue, told RFA that the movie star's words rubbed salt into the wounds of the people of Hong Kong and insulted Hong Kongers. Wang said he had written to the new United States House Select Committee on Yen's role in the event as what he believed was an infiltration of Chinese culture into America. Wang said, "I have called on them to pay close attention to Hollywood and the Academy, and to ensure that the relationship with China and the Chinese Communist Party isn't one of collusion and vested interests." Tong Wai-hom co-authored the petition and said he was not surprised that the Oscars would ignore the public outcry. However, unlike what Yen said about the 2019 protests, Tom said it was a fight against tyranny for many people. He said, Donnie Yen, has gotten this wrong. The Chinese Communist Party has carried on restricting our freedoms and suppressing our human rights ever since the 2019 protests. Miller said Yen presenting at the Oscars proves Hollywood is still compromising its values, lured by the Chinese market. He noted, "Until that changes, and perhaps to help facilitate a change, American moviegoers should support the parts that are not."
Concerned that national security was being compromised, the U.S. requested TikTok's Chinese owners to sell their stakes. Otherwise, the short-form video hosting service owned by ByteDance would be banned. The Financial Times sources report that global investors own 60% of ByteDance's shares. Meanwhile, 20% are owned by employees and another 20% by founders, including Zhang Yiming and Liang Rubo, the current CEO of ByteDance. TikTok CEO Xiao Zhichu will testify before the House Energy and Commerce Committee next week about data privacy practices and TikTok's relationship with the Chinese Communist Party, CCP. TikTok has spent more than $1.5 billion on Project Texas to protect user data and content from the influence of the CCP. However, talks about a security agreement for U.S. users have stalled recently. A few days ago, bipartisan congressmen introduced a bill that would empower the administration to ban Chinese apps that threaten U.S. security, including TikTok. The White House endorsed the bill. A source told the Financial Times that TikTok is evaluating options but plans to continue with Project Texas. Reuters reported that many countries worldwide have partially or entirely banned TikTok. For example, India, Belgium, Canada, and Taiwan are such countries. In addition, even countries whose governments are close to China's regime, such as Afghanistan and Pakistan, are also on the list of countries that ban TikTok.